Good evening, everyone. I'm Harry Spiegelberg, and I'll be your master of ceremonies for the evening. Welcome to the 23rd Hall of Fame induction ceremony and dinner. We've been doing this for 23 years, and it's a wonderful event. I traditionally have started out with telling a humorous story, and I will do that tonight, and hopefully you'll find it amusing. It involves a case of mistaken identity. The Pope arrives at JFK Airport and he's met in a baggage claim by a driver with a bad suit and a clip-on tie holding a hand-lettered sign that says, Pope. After getting the Pope's luggage loaded in the limo, the driver notes that the Pope is still standing by the curb. Hey, Mr. Pope, says the driver, how come you haven't seated yourself in the limo? Well, to tell you the truth, the Pope says, they won't let me drive at the Vatican, and I really like to drive. That's very much against the rules, protested the driver. The Pope said, well, there might be something extra in it for you. Reluctantly, the driver got in the back seat as the Pope got behind the wheel. The driver quickly regretted his decision when, after clearing the airport, the Pope quickly accelerated the limo to 105 miles per hour. Please don't drive so fast, Mr. Pope, pleaded the driver, but the Pope kept the pedal to the metal. Then they heard the siren. Oh my God, I'm surely going to lose my license, said the driver. The Pope pulled over and rolled down his window as the patrolman approached, but the cop took one look at him, went back to his motorcycle, and got on the radio. I need to talk to the chief, he said to the dispatcher. When the chief got on the radio, the cop told him he had stopped the limo doing 105 miles per hour. So bust him, said the chief. I think the guy's a big shot, said the cop. All the more reason, bust him. No, I mean a really big shot, said the cop. So what have you got there? Have you got the mayor? Bigger. You have the governor? Bigger. Well, said the chief, who is it? I don't know, said the cop, but he's got the Pope driving for him. Thank you. I'm very pleased with the crowd that we've got here tonight. Almost 200 people present, and thank you all for coming. Our purpose tonight is to honor and induct 4 outstanding individuals who have made significant contributions to the paper and allied industries. One is from Canada, one from Sweden, and 2 from the USA. I'd like to introduce our previous inductees who are with us tonight, or the representatives, and I'd like to have them stand, and please hold your applause until all are standing. They are Oscar Bolt, class of year 2000, Tom Grace, class of 2003, Tom Gardner, class of 2016, Doug Dougal, class of 2014, and Dick Abb, representing J.D. Lee, class of 1997. Applause, please. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the Hall of Fame board members who can be with us tonight, and again, hold your applause until they're all standing. Lori Arft, Peter Allen, Dan Clarahan, Roy Conrad, Dan Goymerick, Art Rankin, Denny Simon, and Craig Tim. Applause, please. I'm pleased to say that the Paper Discovery Center and the Hall of Fame is doing well, and we appreciate your support. Our executive director will give a report now, and I call upon her, Maria.
Thank you, Harry. Hello and welcome to the 23rd Annual Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Please get your phones out. I'm going to tweet tonight's speech 140 characters at a time. Actually, I tried to get Alec Baldwin to come in and be me this evening, but I'm told he's got a standing gig with somebody else who likes to tweet, so you're stuck with me. So I suppose by now you've all heard about these gadgets and how they're going to take over the use of paper. Well, I'm here to tell you it's never going to happen. Recently, the Wall Street Journal did a story by Walter Isaacson on Da Vinci. The story is promoting Isaacson's new book on Da Vinci, which is being released next week. We all know Da Vinci was brilliant, gifted, talented, and probably used more than 10% of his brain. The takeaway from this story that's important here is that Da Vinci's journals still exist nearly 500 years after his death. These journals are paper. I need to give credit to Peter Allen, our vice chair. We were talking about this last week, and he was telling me about the article. And then Peter and I started talking about old family photos and other papers that we have from our families and how invaluable they are, and what would we do if we didn't have those things on paper? Because, of course, now we all use these things, and there's no hard copy anywhere floating around. So we were talking about if they were stored just in electronic format, who and how would they possibly ever get shared with future generations or even the world? This got me thinking about inspiration and how it has become part of our new mission statement, inspiring all generations, and what that means to us in the past, the present, and for the future. We're here to celebrate past accomplishments of 4 deserving individuals. They are innovators, inventors, entrepreneurs, leaders, academics, forward-thinking men, much like Da Vinci. Like Da Vinci, they have left a wealth of information on paper for us to piece together their personal and professional lives. Present-day inspiration is a given for the staff at the PDC. We see it through the eyes of visitors young and old. And I must tell you that the staff is pretty inspirational. Without them, it's hard to imagine that we could inspire school children to find paper strength testing fun as well as educational. Daily, we are inspired by our surroundings of the river and our historic home at the Atlas Mill. The future is about inspiring generations to come to think about the impact of paper on all of our lives and possibly consider a career in the field. Who knows, there may be another Da Vinci that one day will celebrate at this very event. Paper at its core is inspirational. It allows us to write our everyday list down, encourage us to put our thoughts on paper, teases us to draw, create from very early ages. We fold it into airplanes and origami wonders. Did you know that a 2013 accounting of paper uses totaled more than 22,000 items? What other product can inspire that many uses? It's a good thing I wrote this down on paper and not sent it to you via tweets. Who knows, maybe 500 years from now, someone will be inspired by the work and efforts of our now 139 inductees. So I'd like to thank the inductees this evening for being such an inspiration to all of us. So thank you. I call upon Appleton's mayor, Tim Hanna. Tim and I go way back. I reminded him this evening when he walked in that he used to be my banker many years ago, and he said, not that many years ago. So, and then we compared grandkids, so I guess it's been a while. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Good evening. Oh, thank you. Okay. Wow. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to our guests from Canada, from Sweden, from all over the world, really. And congratulations to past inductees and certainly to this year's inductees. Congratulations. Very nice to have you here in Appleton. So, the landscape continues to change, doesn't it, for paper? We're experiencing some of that right now. But I think we can rest assured it will never, ever go away. And as Maria just told us, and I am sure and I know that paper will always play a very important role here in Appleton and in the Fox Cities, regardless of the changes that come at us. And I know that because the Hall of Fame's here, and it's not going away. And we are so proud to have that facility and the paper discovery facility here right in the heart of Appleton. So I do have a couple of updates that I think will benefit the Paper Discovery Center. We continue to develop our riverfront, and there are exciting new projects, none the least of which is right out the back door here, a 65,000 square foot exhibition center, which I know will welcome many, many old friends and new visitors to our community. But beyond that, what we're doing is we are finally using that as impetus to make a more permanent and dedicated connection between our downtown and the riverfront, which is where the Paper Discovery Center is located. 2 days ago, on Tuesday, I finally, after 12 years of negotiations, signed the agreement with the railroad for the city to finally take ownership of the 3 abandoned railroad trestles that cross the river, one of which empties out right on the steps of the Paper Discovery Center. So I have allocated money in the budget, in Appleton's budget next year, to begin the planning process to start to turn those trestles, and the first one will be that trestle into a trail connection, crossing the river and connecting the trails that already exist on both sides of the river. That's going to put so much more traffic right in front of the door of the Paper Discovery Center, and it's going to open up that facility to so many people who I think today don't even know that it's there, so that they can discover more about the history of the Fox Cities and of Appleton and how important and what a big role paper has played in our history. Earlier this year, I had the honor of greeting people from Germany and from other places around the world to celebrate Voith's 100th anniversary as a company. And I was honored to do that, a very personal thing for me because that's where my father worked for a number of years. And so it was a personal thank you to Voith for their continued presence and their continued growth in the paper industry, but especially here in Appleton, because without them, I don't know where I'd be. Them being here and my father being able to work at Voith enabled me to go to school and get an education and come home and do what I do. So with that, again, congratulations to the new inductees and welcome back to the former inductees, and really welcome to all of you. And I look forward to seeing you again and having further updates and just to report on the exciting developments here in Appleton and share the good news about this place that paper really helped to build. So thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor Hanna. I'm Dave Hollenberg. I'm the chairperson of the Honors Committee. That's the group that selects the people who will be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm encouraged tonight by the number of people who are here. It shows a level of respect for those who have made significant contributions to our industry, and those inductees set the standard for what we would like to see as far as achievement in the industry in the future. Dale Carnegie said that for every speech that you give, there are actually 3 speeches. One that you practice, one that you give, and one that you hoped you had given. Now, I'm not here to give a speech. I'm just here to give the invocation. So if you would just have a moment of silence, and I will give an invocation using a quote from Mark Twain. So, for friends, food, fun, and fellowship, we give our thanks today. As we bless this meal, let us always be mindful of the amazing gifts life gives us. Let these thoughts of Mark Twain guide our lives. Work like you don't need money. Love like you've never been hurt. Sing like nobody's listening. Dance like nobody's watching. And live like it's heaven on earth. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. Dr. Susan May is president of Fox Valley Technical College, a highly regarded educational venue. As you saw in your brochure, she has a BS degree and a master's degree in vocational education from UW-Stout, and she has a doctorate from Nova and Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. She moved into post-secondary education after teaching in high school by joining Fox Valley Technical College in 1983, and after a number of increases in responsibility, she was named president in 2008. She is active in the community in various ways: Community First Credit Union on the board, executive board of the Bay Lakes Council, Boy Scouts of America, and several other national boards. And she's received a number of numerous awards for her community service. The most, in my opinion, the most important one, the Thomas G. Scullin Leadership Award from the Apto Education Foundation, and her own UW-Stout, her alma mater. She was named Educator in Residence. On a personal note, Dr. May grew up and was now a 5-generation family farm in southwestern Wisconsin. A number of our inductees also grew up on a farm, including Darwin Smith, the iconic CEO of Kimberly-Clark, which shows that growing up on a farm, the leadership there, that's how you become a problem solver. Dr. May.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you. You know, I was thinking before coming up here, you've all had a couple of drinks, a very nice dinner, chocolate cake. Then they dimmed the lights. That was sort of that's where it ended for me. I'm thinking, I'm in trouble with this group, trying to keep you with this here for a little while. So it truly is an honor to be with you here this evening. I can also tell you that my husband was absolutely of no help to me. When I mentioned that I was going to be speaking at this event, his immediate response was, "What on earth do you know about paper?" Well, he's right. But tonight, I'm here to talk about something I think I do know something about, and that's this infamous thing that we've heard lots and lots about called the skills gap. And Maria posed this question. This is what I need to address tonight. What solutions do we have to close this skills gap, this issue that we're dealing with? So I'm going to try to do that. I will tell you there are no magic bullets on this one. If there were, we would have them already taken care of. There are a number of possibilities I think that we can pursue here. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I will try to share some things and thoughts with you that might help us address what will be a future and growing issue for us. So, as mentioned, as the president of a very large and progressive technical college headquartered here in Appleton, I've been asked to address this topic. Our college's immediate service area, by the way, consists of 9 counties here in northeast Wisconsin, but in a variety of ways, which I think, share subtly with you tonight, we really have a statewide, national, and even sometimes international impact as well. Skilled worker shortages and concerns about where the future workforce will come from are issues that I hear about every single day, and oh, by the way, from every single industry sector. The problem is not unique to the paper industry or to manufacturing in general, but it is certainly more pronounced in the broader manufacturing sector. My key message this evening is that it will take collaboration and the efforts of many, many entities to solve this problem in the years to come. So what's driving the skills gap? And will it get worse? Well, demographics are one of the key drivers in all of this. There are simply many more workers at retirement age than entering the workforce. The manufacturing sector has this little additional demographic challenge in that it hasn't been particularly attractive to 50% of the population, women in the workforce. So we haven't even hit the midpoint yet of the baby boomer generation retiring. I know that because I am the midpoint of the baby boomer generation. We aren't even there yet. And based on that fact alone, this issue, in my opinion, is going to get much worse. Another driver of today's skills gap is our society's continued bias. And I've got four-year friends here. No, don't take this the wrong way. But we do have a societal bias toward four-year college degrees. When only about 1/3 of positions in our economy requires a bachelor's degree or higher, and nationally, only 25% of four-year college students ever actually earn a bachelor's degree. Now, we do need more scientists and engineers. There's no question about that. But unless we change this overall mindset, our education and career pursuits are going to continue to provide a real mismatch for what our economy actually needs. And yet, when you sit back and think about it, less than half of all American working-age adults hold any form of post-secondary credential. And we wonder why we have a skills gap. That's a huge number of people. You know, Harry mentioned growing up on a farm. You know, with fewer and fewer family farms today, not only here in Wisconsin, but certainly all across this country, kids today are simply not being exposed to hands-on work or the skills development that at home that they once were. For most of our industrialized history, Wisconsin manufacturers have loved to hire farm kids because of their skills and their work ethic. They're just not there in numbers today like they used to be. So I mentioned the baby boomers have started to retire. And by the way, the rest of that group are headed in the same direction. What do they say? 10,000 people every day retire from this segment? You know, for some reason, too many of our organizations have not prepared for those inevitable large numbers of retirements. We seem to be in a state of denial about this. Finally, I find that many employers hold unrealistic expectations of new graduates from either technical colleges or from universities, particularly when they're hired to replace 40-year veteran and highly skilled employees. You know, you just can't replace that experience overnight. New graduates may have the technical know-how, they may possess solid skills and be willing to learn, but they lack the experience and the intimate knowledge of your operation to seamlessly replace that veteran. So that sort of instance, it's going to seem like another skills gap for your organizations. And it is, because the experience simply isn't there yet. So what can we do about this problem, this overall skills gap issue? As employers, I have a couple of suggestions, and this is for myself as an employer and all employers. First, we need to do a better job of analyzing our workforce age makeup and retirement projections. We all know the ages of our employees, so there should be no big surprises in that mix. I find it incredible that we don't do more analysis about that and see what's coming and when that is likely to be happening and coming in our direction. We need to develop existing employees for higher skilled roles, providing opportunities for them to grow and advance, and then hire for the lower skill levels. Now, this is going to take time and planning, but I think this concept of grow your own as a model needs to be part of the equation. Here's an example of an employer that we've worked with along these lines. Wapaka Foundry is one of the world's largest manufacturers of iron castings. They were interested in assessing the skill levels of their employees, better match skill levels to compensation, and address any skills gaps through additional training. They contracted with our college to develop, test, and implement a customized industrial maintenance skills assessment program that involved 16 hands-on assessments. Some of the assessment stations are shown here in this photograph. To date, we have conducted over 700 of these assessments at 4 Wapaka Foundry facilities across the country, in Wisconsin, Indiana, and Tennessee. This effort has resulted in a number of employee promotions, more targeted skills training, employee interest in multi-skill development, and improved productivity for the company. Gordy Barth, shown here in the hard hat, who is the manager of employee development and training for the Foundry, has stated, when everyone has a full range of skills, our company wins because problems are recognized sooner and fixed faster, and that means improved productivity. Employers can also support specialized skills for individuals through registered apprenticeships, tuition reimbursement programs, or mentorship, job shadow kinds of approaches. Registered apprenticeships are readily available here in Wisconsin, where employers sponsor apprentices at work and in school. Today, our college provides training for over 1,200 apprentices in 17 different trades, including occupations such as industrial electricians, machinists, and plumbers. I've often wished that employers would do more to mine their candidate pools for people that may not have the requisite education, skills, or experience that you're looking for, but perhaps possess the kind of attitude and desire that you're looking for, and would consider sponsoring those individuals in technical education programs for the positions that you need, in return for some type of work commitment for a period of years. We have done this, for instance, in the CNA area with area nursing homes, where they are desperately needing CNAs to run their operations. They are sponsoring those individuals in training programs. These are the people who already want to come and work for you, but they may not have everything in place to do so. I think of this as a sponsorship model. Again, it's just another arrow in the quiver of finding and preparing the necessary talent. And consider collaborating also with other employers who have similar or common needs. As a consortium, companies can support specialized education programs through their local community or technical colleges. An example of this that we've worked with, and it also happens to involve industrial maintenance, but we became aware of a common need among several area employers having great difficulty finding industrial maintenance technicians, and worked with them collaboratively on a customized program where they sent designated trainees as participants. The employers determined the content of the curriculum, the scheduling of the program, and selected the participants. They worked together and with the college to develop the skills that they needed. If demographics are a key issue where you're located, work with regional economic development organizations, chambers, municipalities, and colleges to identify strategies for attracting more of the working age adults to your region. This is not easy, but it definitely involves strategy development and consideration of what it is that you can do to attract more people where you need them. Find ways to get closer and partner with your area K-12 schools, colleges, and universities, as well as don't forget about youth organizations such as Junior Achievement, Scouting, and Boys and Girls Clubs. Industries and companies need to get in front of kids to help them understand the great opportunities available in organizations like yours. The Paper Discovery Center is certainly a great example of that as well. You just can't do too much of this type of outreach. And finally, consider partnership programs that might meet some specific needs that you have. I'd like to share an example of a partnership program that we developed with a particular company, Fabco Caterpillar. This Milwaukee-based company has 23 locations in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. They rent and service Caterpillar equipment. Over a decade ago, they knew that they needed a creative strategy for ensuring a steady supply of well-trained service technicians for their facilities. Without those service techs, they were going to go out of business. They sought an educational partner and worked with our college to create the FabTech Education Center in Oshkosh, and technician training programs specific for their operations. In this particular partnership model, the college provides the facility and instructors, the company provides the equipment, tooling, and an annual cash contribution. Together, we recruit the students and ensure that the curriculum is addressing the latest technological needs. A very successful program that produces well-prepared candidates for their service centers each year. We've just concluded our initial 10-year partnership agreement with Fabco CAT and have re-signed a new agreement for another 10 years. That tells me that company is very pleased with the kinds of candidates that are coming through. And again, collaboratively, we've worked together to ensure they have a technician pipeline for the future. As a technical college, we are doing everything we can to attract people to technical education and training for many of the greatest skills gap occupations. We do extensive outreach to K-12 schools, providing career exploration activities and dual credit courses where students can get a leg up on their post-secondary education while they're still in high school. We are undertaking efforts to attract prospective students that we have never had to do before, including direct staff outreach to nonprofit agencies and their clients in places like food pantries, homeless shelters, and emergency shelters in our communities. That's where we're reaching to find people. We've developed a promise program through our foundation to cover the cost of tuition, books, and materials for low-income students, ensuring that money isn't a barrier to a technical college education. Why all these kinds of efforts? Because our workforce needs every person available, and the opportunities are outstanding for those with the skills that are needed by all of you and by so many others. And as I hope you could see by the examples I've shared this evening, we stand ready to work with any industry, any company, as a collaborative partner in developing creative solutions. And I know that there are many educational institutions across the country that are also willing to do so. With that, I thank you, and I would be happy to answer a few questions if you have any for me this evening. Or has that chocolate cake set in? Any questions at all? All right. Yeah, Harry, you've come up with a question. Go ahead.
Isn't this going to make us much more competitive worldwide? We can build up our own strength in manufacturing skills in this country.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was asking if our collective work in this area in building up manufacturing will make us more competitive worldwide. And my answer is absolutely. Without strong manufacturing, this country is going to be in real trouble. Real wealth is created, as you know, through manufacturing and the production of products from these organizations. So it's absolutely critical that we strengthen manufacturing and continue to do so. Thanks, Harry. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Oh, Dr. Dougal.
I went to school in Germany, and they have a system that after Abitur, which is high school, that you can either go to college or not go to college. It's their decision. So this kind of concept has been applied in Europe for years together, and they have been very successful in demonstrating skills that people need for manufacturing. So I think you're in the right path.
Dr. Dougal is talking about the German apprenticeship model and the fact that for many, many decades, Germany has had a model where certain students will go in one direction, that is, say, a university direction. Other students will go into a more technical or non-university direction. That has been very successful for a country like Germany. And I think many of us have studied and looked at that model over the years, and we would agree for them it has been successful. This is my opinion. The reason I think that will never work in America is because this is America. And sort of tracking young people at a very, very early age is very much pushed against, if you will. So because of that, what we're trying to do is to give young people, while they're in K-12, exposure to, opportunities with, coursework, et cetera, to open their eyes as much as possible. But I think that's the difference really between what's happening in Germany and the United States is I don't think that our society is willing to track kids in one direction, again, at a very, very early age. So we have got to do even more to make them aware of occupations that are desperately needed by our organizations. All right, thank you again, everyone. It's been a pleasure to join you this evening.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent talk, and it really sets the stage, I think, for what we have to be looking at in the future, because what we have done in the past has served us very well, following the same kind of things, but the future is not static, and so we need to further focus and follow the lines of what our speaker was saying. Okay, I'm going to call Vice Chairman Peter Allen up to the podium here, and he's going to lead us through the induction ceremony.
Well, good evening, everyone. What a good-looking group of people. And I hope you've enjoyed dinner and had some fun at your table with the trivia. You know, I'm especially encouraged to see, as I look around, I can see at least a few younger faces. I look over the late States tappy table, and I think this is fantastic. You guys come back and bring some friends next year, okay? Because the future of our industry is in your hands. And just as Susan has shared, you know, it's all about the youth and the young people that we're training up, so that's the future. So it's interesting to think about that as we now look back and think about the past. Because, in fact, the past and the inspiration that we get from that is going to inform the people that are going to set the course for the future as well. So we're here tonight to recognize and honor some giants in our industry, some people that have really made a big difference. So we're here to honor, but we're also here to inspire. And I hope that as you hear the stories and you understand you know, what some of these people have done and what they've achieved, but also some of the way that they've overcome obstacles. And I find consistently, year in and year out, when I come away from this ceremony and this dinner and this event, I'm inspired because it's amazing to me what some of our inductees have done. And I think you'll find that to be true this evening as well. So, you know, as Mayor Hanna said at the outset, you know, our industry is going through some trying times for sure. And you hear about it in the news, you see things every day, and you hear bits and pieces. And I suppose you could say there's plenty of reasons to be discouraged. But let's not be mired in the troubles of today. Let's think about and let's lay the groundwork for a bright future based on the inspiration that we can gain from the people that have come before us. As we consider what they've done and what they've achieved and what they've overcome, let's be inspired to really make it a great future. And it's going to be up to you guys. It's going to be up to the young people in the room to do that. So I hope that each of you will have that feeling tonight as you leave, that you'll be inspired and encouraged by what you've heard. Well, each year at the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame, we receive numerous nominations for consideration. And each of those nominations is supported by 2 nominators, which citing accomplishments against established criteria. These criteria include contributions in the following categories: technology, academics, marketing and sales, economics, research and development, entrepreneur, leadership, service, and founder. And this year, the Honors Committee has recommended 4 outstanding candidates. As you can see, we've got 4 chairs up here. These 4 candidates were, and I should say that each of these candidates has achievement in at least one of those areas that I mentioned. And these 4 candidates were enthusiastically endorsed by the board and will be recognized tonight. So I should also mention that all nominations are kept on file for 5 years. So the other nominations that were made this year will be reconsidered again as new information is added. And I might, at this point, also make a plea to this crowd to say, hey, put in some nominations. If you know of people, perhaps they're even still active or recently retired, who you think are worthy based on the impact they've made on the industry in any of those areas, submit a nomination and let us know about them. That would be fantastic. And in fact, I think we'd also like to hear in the future about young people that you see who are showing a lot of promise and making a difference. And perhaps in the future we'll be able to recognize some of those as well. That would be great. Okay, and at this time I'm just going to introduce the Honors Committee, who, as Dave mentioned earlier, was responsible for really going through the information that was submitted as part of the nomination. So as I read off the names, if you're present, please stand and we'll recognize you at the end with some applause. So Dave Hollenberg, retired R&D Director at Georgia Pacific. Annika Vannanen, scientific consultant based in Finland. Tom Grace, retired at the TM Grace Company. Tom is a 2003 inductee. Jeff Lindsay, head of intellectual property at Asia Pulp and Paper. Norm Marcelin is here, I know. He's the executive director of the Renewable Byproducts Institute at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Jerry Ring is also here, professor emeritus, paper science and engineering at UW-Stevens Point. And finally, Harry Spiegelberg, retired vice president of research and development at Kimberly-Clark. So let's give a round of applause to these. So Jerry and Al are going to come up and assist in the induction ceremony, and I'll just explain a little bit about how it's going to work so you understand. I'm going to, as I announce the name of each inductee, I would ask that the inductee or their representative to stand, and a brief video will be shown to highlight the inductee's life and achievements. That's where you get inspired. And after the video, the inductee or their representative will come forward to receive the award on stage and share a brief response. And then once that's happened, I'm going to ask the inductees to take a seat on the stage and remain there for the rest of the induction ceremony. So we're going to go in alphabetical order. And our first inductee is Louis Alexander, who is deceased. He is from the USA. And Mr. Alexander is being recognized in the categories of entrepreneur, founder, and leadership. Representing Mr. Alexander is Ms. Leslie Arndt, Louis's great-great-granddaughter. So Ms. Arndt, if you would please stand. Fantastic, thank you. And we're going to show the video now. So.
Louis M. Alexander possessed a visionary spirit that drove him to be a pioneer in the world of papermaking. Throughout his life, he approached new ventures with an eye to the future. During his career, Alexander wore many hats, including papermaker, manufacturer, businessman, banker, educator, and naturalist. Alexander began his life on an Iowa farm in 1858, the fourth of 11 children. He was named for Lewis Miller, the inventor of the mechanical reaper, and is a descendant of Robert the Bruce of Scotland. Valuing education, he planned for a career in railroading and telegraphs, hoping to explore new lands. He worked as a messenger for American Express, as well as a telegraph operator and railroad mail clerk. He later joined the family banking business, helping to organize the Santa Rosa National Bank in Santa Rosa, California. There, he met John Edwards of Port Edwards, Wisconsin, who was the head of many business ventures involving logging and manufacturing. Edwards convinced Alexander to return to Wisconsin with him, making Alexander the secretary and treasurer of the newly formed John Edwards Manufacturing Company in 1890. At the same time, Alexander met and married his wife Lida, the daughter of John Edwards. When John Edwards passed away the following year, Alexander took the helm as president of the company. In a move that would become his trademark, Alexander began to look to the future. He realized that dwindling forests would soon mark the end of Wisconsin's logging industry. He believed that a switch to the production of paper would be the key to business longevity. By 1893, he had helped to organize the Nakusa Paper Company, and within 3 years had replaced the John Edwards sawmill with the John Edwards paper mill, furnishing newsprint and newspapers all over the country. He also became treasurer and secretary of the Centralia Pulp and Water, building the first pulp and paper mill on the Wisconsin River. Alexander realized that the profits of his paper company could be enhanced by having a continual and direct supply of timber. Under his leadership, a reforestation program was begun to establish a forest nursery on otherwise unproductive land around the Wisconsin River. In 1925, the NEPCO Forest Program started purchasing growth forests for preservation and planted new stands of trees on barren land. This became one of the first tree nurseries in the United States. The trees were not only used by the paper company, but were sold to farmers at cost to continue the reforestation program. Again, showing his understanding of the benefits of the natural world, Alexander capitalized on the vast amount of hydroelectric power provided by the Wisconsin River. He envisioned and built NEPCO Lake in order to supply fresh water for printing paper. Now, generations later, the same lake is providing the people of surrounding areas with recreational enjoyment. Wanting to share with others the gift of education, Alexander became a generous benefactor to many causes. He helped make possible the school building at Port Edwards, as well as Alexander High School in Nakusa. He donated his money, time, and talent to Lawrence University, the Institute of Paper Chemistry in Appleton, and the Library of the American University in Washington, D.C. Alexander also embraced new technology in 1928 with the purchase of a Ford tri-motor airplane. The plane served dual purposes, both as a moving billboard for Nakusa paper and as a way to transport customers and his sales force. In his later life, Alexander and Lyda split their time among homes in Port Edwards, Milwaukee, and Florida. Upon his death in 1934, Louis Alexander was remembered as a philanthropist, innovator, and steward of nature.
Coming forward is Ms. Arndt to receive the award on behalf of her great-great-grandfather.
Good evening. I just would like to take this opportunity to thank the the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame for this honor bestowed upon my great-grandfather tonight. His legacy and his accomplishments continue to resonate throughout the communities and the institutions that he built. Thank you so much again for this honor.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our second inductee, who I had the pleasure of meeting on the way in this evening, is Dr. Hong-Hee Tran. And Dr. Tran is professor of pulp and paper engineering at the University of Toronto in Canada. Professor Tran is being recognized in the category of research and development. And Dr. Tran is standing right here in front of me, and we're going to now watch a video pertaining to his life and achievements.
Hong-Hee Tran has been nominated for induction into the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame for outstanding contributions in the area of research and development. Few in this category have been more deserving of this honor. Throughout his career, Dr. Tran has shown an unparalleled commitment to providing the pulp and paper industry with research that lessens environmental impacts, decreases operating expenses, and builds partnerships between the worlds of education and industry. Tran was born in 1951 in Ninh Hoa, Vietnam. He makes his home in Toronto with his wife, Avon. He was educated at Shizuoka University in Hamamatsu, Japan, and earned his PhD at the University of Toronto in Canada. He has been granted 8 U.S. patents and has been bestowed upon numerous professional honors, including the Tappy Gunnar Nicholson Gold Medal and the John S. Bates Gold Medal from the Pulp and Paper Technical Association of Canada. Tran's technological contributions to the paper industry are many and varied, yet all share the distinction of being used all over the world. Over 95% of the world's recovery blowers use the soot blower nozzle that was patented in 1996 by Tran and 2 partners. This innovative design saves the paper industry an estimated $100 million per year. His low-pressure soot blowing technology has been used in the US and Brazil, and his borate auto-causticizing technology allows craft mills to increase capacity with a small investment. In addition, the work by his research group with an entrained flow reactor produced great results which saves much money for the industry. Tran has been a leader in mentoring, teaching, and training new additions to the pulp and paper industry. He currently holds the positions of Frank Dodery Professor of Pulp and Paper Engineering at the University of Toronto and is also the director of the Pulp and Paper Center. He devotes much attention to his students, ensuring that they have the skills needed to succeed in the profession. Each year he meets with those who sponsor his research, keeping them informed on the progress being made and showing them the practical implications of such efforts. This is invaluable experience for Professor Tran's students, giving them the opportunity to explain their efforts and gain real-world experience. Additionally, in his role as instructor for the Tappy Craft Recovery course, Tran has taken part in training over 3,700 professionals. Hong-Hee Tran has excelled at building a partnership between those who research the pulp and paper industry and those who work in it. Here he is seen with Hall of Famers Dr. Thomas Grace on the left and Dr. David Goring on the right. The benefit that these relationships bring to the university, his students, and the leaders in the industry cannot be overstated. Here, Tran is with Hall of Famers Dr. Douglas Reeve on the left and Dr. Howard Rapson on the right. Because of his efforts, the university has received over $25 million in funding, provided positions for 35 faculty, and trained over 200 students. When Tran and his research group analyze data, they are constantly looking at ways to use it to better the paper industry. Among other things, this research has helped to improve energy and chemical recovery efficiency, increase safety, reduce environmental impact by lowering carbon footprints, and made machinery both more efficient and more reliable. The Paper Industry International Hall of Fame is honored to welcome Dr. Hong-Hee Tran. His commitment to the paper industry through research and his ability to build connections between the academic and professional worlds of paper are known and respected throughout the world.
Professor Tran, please come forward to receive your award.
Well, what can I say? When they asked me to send them photos, and I could not realize that it make it such a big story out of it. It's just amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I would like first to thank my colleagues, Professor Grant Allen and Professor Dr. Reeve of the University of Toronto for their nomination, and the honor committee for selecting me as one of the inductees tonight. I'm really pleased and humbled an honor to be inducted into the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame. This is really like a dream to me. I attended this event in 2008 when my former supervisor and mentor, Dr. Reeve, was inducted. It was quite an inspirational and experience for me. I could never imagine that a little guy like me, 9 years later, stand in front of you tonight to be inducted. But here I am. I must admit that I'm very lucky to have had the opportunity to work closely with 4 other Hall of Fame, as you saw in the video: Tom Grace, Hal Robson, Lev Goring, and Doug Reeve. Their achievement and contribution to the paper industry were truly inspirational and admirable. It's an honor for me to be able to join this club of wonderful individuals. Let me tell you a little bit my story. Really, time flies, After spending 9 years in Japan, doing my bachelor and master degree, and then working for a glass company there, I came to Toronto for almost 40 years ago. At the time, I couldn't find an engineering job because of my lack of Canadian experience. And I had to settle for a lab technician position that paid me $4.25 Canadian an hour. After 3 months on the job, I realized that this position would not keep me alive to my first Canadian winter. So I returned to the University of Toronto to pursue my PhD study. There I was lucky enough to be accepted by David Boham, my former supervisor, and Dr. Reeve, and the thesis project assigned to me was to figure out why a superheater tube, the heat exchanger superheater tube, in a brand new recovery boiler at the closed cycle mill in Turner Bay, Canada, was severely corroded, as you saw some of the photo, after only 15 months in operation. Well, because at that time, there was no Google at the time, so I couldn't figure it out. I have no clue what the recovery boiler were and what a superheater tube meant to me. But I couldn't find any better thing to do at that time, so I went ahead and accepted the challenge anyway. Luckily, it was an easy project. It took me less than 3 years to complete. But through the process, I learned how ash deposit form in the boiler and the impact it has on boiler plugging and corrosion. Since at that time, not many people were working in this subject. I instantly become famous, an expert in this field, and was invited by many pulp mills to help them with their plugging and corrosion problem. In 1987, Dr. Reeve found the Pulp and Paper Center, and I was asked to return to university to help him to launch our first 3 years research consortium on recovery boiler plugging. It was a huge success, leading to another 10 consecutive research consortia, all focused on various experience in the chemical recovery operation. For those of you, because many of you here, it's a paper maker, paper related. But do you know, when you make 1 ton of paper or pulp, you also produce 10 tons of waste called a weak black liquor, which you leave it to us to sort it out, how to recover. And so this is a very challenging job for us, Tom Gray and myself, trying to figure out how to minimize the pollution, minimize the problem, to reuse the chemical so that the pulp and paper industry can move on. So usually we don't get the credit for that, but I'm very glad that at last we got recognized. So thank you very much. Well, this has been a very long journey, but luckily I have had a great support from many people along the way. That include my colleagues, University of Toronto, over 200 students, researchers, and research staff in my research group, as well as many technical staff engineers that are working for over 50 companies all over the world that support our research program. The close involvement of the industry has brought great practical value to our research program. And I really also want to thank TAPI and PAPTAC. They really play a vital role to our success. The journal, TAPI Journal, and Pulp and Paper Canada, and conferences have made a great forum for us, the academia, to communicate with one another and with the industry, and to transfer the fundamental knowledge that we earn or we obtain from our research to help make pulp and paper mill a better and safer place to work. I really owe my success also to Dr. Tom Grace here, who is joining me and with our table with his wife, Mary, who have Tom, I know for more than 30 years, and I always consider him my mentor, collaborator, colleague, and a very close friend. I have learned a great deal from Tom. Thank you, Tom. With us tonight, also, my old and close friend, Brian and his wife. Brian and I have known each other for 45 years, and he had made himself here just to witness this event, and really mean a lot to me, and I really thank you, both Brian and Antoine. Last but not least, I want to thank my lovely wife, Ivan, who has stood by me and supported me unconditionally for all this year. Behind every great man is a great woman, or so they said. Well, you are amazingly great indeed. Thank you. I also want to thank my daughter, Angela, and Chris, and son-in-law, Jeff, daughter-in-law, Karen, and our one-year-old granddaughter, Charlotte. Without their love and support, none of my achievement could have been possible, and I would have not been here today. I really am very, very blessed to have a lovely and caring family. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Dr. Tran, for your comments. Okay, our third inductee tonight is Dr. Douglas Warren, who is deceased, and Dr. Warren is from Sweden. Dr. Warren is being recognized in the categories of academics, inventor, and research and development. And representing Dr. Warren tonight is his son, Johan Warren. Mr. Warren, please stand. And we'll show the video.
Dr. Douglas Warren was born in 1934 in Norrköping, Sweden. When he was 15 years old, Warren contracted polio and was unconscious for 6 weeks and paralyzed from the neck down. With the help of penicillin and physical therapy, Warren was able to improve and eventually able to walk again. This moment forever changed his outlook on life. He knew that if he fell, he could always pick himself back up. Throughout his life, Warren enjoyed music and learned to play the saxophone, guitar, and accordion. In 1957, he married his childhood friend Inger. They have 2 children together, Caroline and Johan. With both a grandfather and a father who worked in the paper industry, it shouldn't come as a surprise that Warren decided to follow a similar path. However, it took him a while to realize his passion. He attended university with the intent to become a mechanical engineer, but he was persuaded to sit in on a class of papermaking. From that moment, he was hooked. He graduated in 1957 from the Royal Institute of Technology and started working as a research assistant in the papermaking department at STFI. It was there that he discovered krill, small fibers in pulp that caused filtration resistance. He named them such because they reminded him of the krill that was eaten by whales. He found that by removing the krill, he was able to create paper that had a higher degree of freeness and also was stronger. Warren's innovations didn't stop there. He kept seeing possibilities and making them a reality. In 1964, he completed his doctorate with a dissertation on three-dimensional fiber networks and went to Beloit, Wisconsin to work as a visiting scientist for a year. Warren held many different jobs in his lifetime because he believed that if you couldn't accomplish your task in 5 years, it was time for someone else to have a shot at it. His results-oriented mentality served him well as he was able to engineer the 3-layer headbox, which led to the development of modern-day headboxes, as well as pressing and Yankee dryer technology. Warren was invited to join the Institute of Paper Chemistry in Appleton, Wisconsin, where he performed research. It was there that he finalized his work on impulse drying. He saw a need to increase the drying capacity, and impulse drying was the answer. Impulse drying, he reasoned, could speed up the drying process by increasing the rate and using pulses of steam to blow water out of the sheet, rather than just using a longer drying section. When the impulse drying technology was inaugurated by the King of Sweden, Karl VI Augustaf, Warren was the guest of honor. After leaving the IPC in 1986, Warren was in the process of finalizing a job in New York when he was offered to work with Stora Teknik in Sweden, which he accepted, working as a vice president and director of research. After leaving Stora, Warren decided to pursue some ideas he'd been thinking about: a theoretical analysis of optical brightening agents and a product modeling program for paper development engineers. In 1996, he created the Profit Professor, which was a consulting company. Then in 1998, he was awarded the prestigious Gunnar Nicholson Gold Medal. Up until he passed away on December 27, 2011, Warren kept himself busy with statistical analysis related to paper consumption, as well as other hobbies of his. He published a total of 3 books, 14 papers, and created 17 patents, both in the United States and internationally. Ideas are just thoughts until you bring them to life. Dr. Douglas Warren was not just a dreamer, but also a doer. Not only was he able to come up with many innovative ways to increase the speed and lower the cost of papermaking, he also brought those ideas to life. As he frequently said, ideas come cheaply, technology is a different thing.
Before Mr. Warren accepts the award on behalf of his father, I'd like to read some comments that were sent to us on Dr. Warren's behalf from Karl-Henrik Sundström, the CEO of Stora Enso. So here are his comments. Mr. Sundström says, "We are very pleased to learn that Professor Douglas Warren's memory will be honored in the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame. Professor Warren made significant contributions in research and innovation during his years in the industry, not the least proven by the fact that he has previously received the most outstanding awards like the SPCI Ekman Medal and the Tappy Nicholson Gold Medal. Innovation is more important than ever to Stora Enso, as we believe that everything that is made by fossil-based materials today will be made of a tree tomorrow. Again, we are touched that Professor Warren's memory is being honored in such a magnificent way, and we wish you a successful awards ceremony. Best regards, Karl-Henrik Sundström." So, Mr. Warren, please accept the award on behalf of the board.
I'm sure my father would have really liked to be here. He would be hugely honored at this. One correction, it was not the Profit Professor, although I'm sure he made a profit, but it was the Paper Professor. So My mother, who is still alive and kicking over in Sweden, really wanted to be here in person, but she just could not travel overseas. So again, thank you very, very much for this big honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren, very much. Our fourth and final inductee is Avril J. Wiley, who is deceased. He's from the USA. Mr. Wiley is being recognized in the categories of inventor, innovator, leadership, and research and development. And representing Mr. Wiley is his son, John. And, so let's watch the video.
Avril John Wiley was born in Pullman, Washington in 1911 and is recognized for his leadership skills, dedicated research, and talents as an inventor and innovator. Wiley's father, John Benjamin Wiley, was a horticulturist specializing in apples for the state of Washington, where Avril and his sister Theo spent many happy hours in the orchards. At the age of 15, Wiley lost his hearing as a result of meningitis. His hearing loss, however, did not stop him from pursuing an education. Wiley received both bachelor's and master's degrees from Washington State University and then continued his studies at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. It was in Madison that Avril met his future wife, Maud, who taught lip reading and speech to deaf students. The Wileys raised two sons, Avril J. Jr. and William in Appleton, in a home located across from City Park, where family, friends, and neighbors were often invited to sit a spell. Wiley was hired as the technical director for a group of sulfite paper mills on the grounds of the Appleton Consolidated Paper Mill, operating and managing a small pilot plant. This group grew to include 38 U.S. and 3 Canadian pulp mills, and the plant grew to be a 10,000 square foot research lab with a 10,000 item library and staff consisting of 56 chemists, technicians, and administrators. Under Wiley's leadership, the venture grew to include all types of pulp manufacturing. Eventually, the Pulp Manufacturers Research League merged with the Institute of Paper Chemistry. Many environmental impact and productive uses of sulfite wastes were accomplished under the direction of Wiley. He was one of the first to make use of reverse osmosis technology outside of early desalination efforts for sulfite liqueurs. Wiley's work gave pulp and paper mills a choice in seeking solutions between conventional forms of secondary sewage treatments that provide treatment for effluents after they leave the mill. For his contributions in reducing sulfite stream pollution, he was awarded the prestigious Nash Conservation Award, chosen from over 700 candidates. He later conceptualized and combined the reverse osmosis step with a freeze concentration technology step to save energy costs. Both of these technologies were successfully demonstrated at many mill sites. He correctly reasoned that freezing water would be less expensive than evaporating water to concentrate the diluted sulfite liqueurs. Wiley coined the term the industrial kidney for the reverse osmosis process, as it mimics the function of a human kidney. During a trip to Scandinavian and European mills in the mid-1960s, he consulted with mill leaders on his research of sulfite mill waste. His research work and results led Wisconsin, as well as other states and nations, to better quality water and stream improvement programs. It was Wiley's keen analytical mind and academic training in bacteriology, fermentation, and biochemistry that helped mills worldwide stay ahead of regulatory agencies' ever-increasing demands for higher stream and river quality. Wiley looked to processes that could be done in an orderly and economically feasible manner with a minimum of economic crisis. Many environmental impact and productive uses of sulfite pulp wastes were accomplished under the direction of Avril Wiley. In 1968, Gallaudet College, the National College for the Deaf in Washington, D.C., awarded Wiley an honorary doctorate degree. In addition to these accomplishments, Wiley holds a number of U.S. and international patents. Avril and Maud Wiley enjoyed their retirement years surrounded by family, friends, and the gardens they tended. Avril John Wiley passed away on November 2nd, 2002.
Mr. Wiley's son is coming forward to receive the award on behalf of his dad.
It's a very special privilege and honor to be represented here today. It's hard to imagine that your dad is one of 139 people that have qualified for the Hall of Fame out of really the million or so people that work in the paper industry around the world. It's amazing to me. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my dad. And in telling you about my dad, it's kind of hard not to include my mother, who was his lip reading teacher, and along the way. But Mom and Dad used to they went to All Saints Episcopal Church, and my mom would sit in the third pew on the left side, and my dad would sit next to her, and my mom would spell the sermon to her. But every now and then, my mom had a sense of humor. She would twist a word, and you could see my dad just chuckling in the front row at sometimes a very serious moment. One time they were walking out of church, and the minister said, "Maud, I notice that sometimes you just stop spelling. How come?" "Oh," she said, "I only tell them the important things." So, Dad was fortunate to have his hearing for 15 years. He had normal speaking skills and modulations, but he developed a wonderful talent with Mom's tutelage for lip reading. For Dad, it became a lifetime of learning, not without an occasional periodic humorous reference about who was the student. Bob Davidson was my dad's lifelong friend, and he and his Boy Scout troop and my dad went camping one day, and they came home, and 3 boys came down with spinal meningitis. My dad lost his hearing, Bob Davidson became legally blind, and the 3rd boy lost some eyesight and some hearing. Bob decided that he would become an attorney, and he went through law school with his mother reading all of the casework and all of the textbooks to him, and then he would remember enough to pass whatever exams he had to pass. I just found that incredible, and I thought you'd like that. I often picture those 2 boys after their illness when they were 16, 17, and 18, talking about the future, because both of those boys just achieved amazing, amazing things with their handicaps. I've often wanted, or I've thought from time to time, that it would have been fun to sit there and listen to them. I wondered sometimes how they would communicate, but they would tell each other their dreams, and I'm sure they were supporting each other and encouraging each of them to develop. I have to clear my throat for this one, but we used to love to travel as a family, and periodically Dad would be driving, and he'd break out into a song. Let's see if I can remember the words here. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, etc. And it always amazed me that 30 years later, he could remember the tune, he could remember the words, and he hadn't heard any music for that period of time. Dad had 2 characteristics that always kind of amazed me. He never felt sorry for himself. Rather, his deafness seemed to create a deep empathy for people. He realized that none of us were perfect. Strangers could be impatient or uncomfortable looking at him while he was talking to them, so he could read their lips. It never offended him, and he simply and kindly explained why it was important to slow down and speak clearly. Oddly enough, I would often get excited and speak too fastly, and he would quickly reteach me. He was sensitive to others and was always interested in what they had to say. He was an easy guy to like. We never had TV at home, but my grandparents, who lived on the first floor, downstairs had a TV that we could watch. And it's still having repercussions in the family because when my kids were teens, the TV broke, and then I noticed that life became more calm. So we never replaced the TV, and for 4 or 5 years. And grandparents got a lot of attention because the kids would go over and watch TV there. What's even more interesting is that one of my boys who's here really doesn't even have a TV in his home. And the other one's TV broke. And it seems like he's not going to replace it. Dad kept up on news and current events. We subscribed to Time and Life, Saturday Evening Post, National Geographic, Reader's Digest, and Mom to Better Homes and Gardens. Dad had a friend, Milt LaFave, who worked together with him at the League. They both loved photography and home repairs and cutting their boys and each other's hair. And they had lots of parties and picnics with family and friends. Maud and Avro loved their home in 303. And my mom's folks and Aunt Maud lived downstairs, and the two boys were upstairs out of sight. They lived in the house for 50 years, and there was always a swing on the porch, and neighbors and friends would stop and enjoy swinging, stop and enjoy setting a spell. A month after my dad retired, a city bus ran into the front porch and pretty much through the front porch. And my dad decided that he would repair it himself. And he did really a marvelous job of repairing it. Another thing that he did around the house is he decided one year that he was going to paint the house. And deaf people have they lose part of their sense of balance. And we lived in a 3-story house, and the gables were way up on top. And I think he had 4 extensions on the ladder. And he climbed up and painted that thing. Then he coerced me to paint the 3 extensions on the second floor, the top of the second floor. And my knees were shaking so bad that I'm surprised the ladder didn't fall apart. But he told me how to fall if the ladder fell. I think what he said was, don't let go, ride it all the way to the bottom. The second thing that amazes me about my dad was his writing. He wrote many articles for trade magazines and book chapters and all kinds of magazines, industry magazines for sewage and other kinds of things, because his knowledge had applications in many different engineering sciences. I had the opportunity to read several articles and 4 patents, and it really amazed me at how simple the words were. The science were sometimes complex, but everything was organized and well-spoken. Helen Foss was his secretary, and she was a very skilled and competent, organized, proficient person. And they could speak together on a special phone hookup, and she would relate what the caller was saying to him, and he would say, mm-hmm, yep, uh-huh. And then when it came turn for him to give an answer, he would just hesitate for a moment until Helen finished. And then he could communicate with people really all over the country and sometimes the world. One time, a guy from Alabama hung up on him. He was frustrated and didn't understand. And Helen told Doug Dougal, about it, and that fellow got a very short and to the point phone call. Sometimes deaf people also have a hard time in social groups. They feel like everybody's talking about them or talking, looking at them and just thinking about them. This never seemed to happen to Dad. First, because he had heard for 15 years, and then because Mom or a friend were often nearby in social situations. Dad always had a pen and a piece of paper in his pocket to help people communicate an idea that he was having trouble with. At work, Dad was a collaborative leader. He was comfortable with the mill presidents and vice presidents at the annual meetings, but he was also just as comfortable with the janitor. There was actually a picture of the janitor in the video. John was a farmer who was in charge of keeping care of the equipment and maintaining the lab operations. And one time, for one reason or another, I was there helping him. And he turned to me and he said, "You know, your dad is the strongest person I ever met." And I was kind of amazed because I didn't think of him that way at all. And he told me that my dad had helped his dad roof houses during the Depression. He carried 2 bundles of shingles on his shoulder up a ladder, which just amazed me with an impaired sense of balance. And this is the last story. So, my mother used to spank me, and I was always relieved because that was then the end of the situation. However, my dad, sometimes she would say to me, "Wait till your dad goes home, go up to your room." Well, I'd go upstairs and read and kind of relax. Dad would come home and this gentleman would climb the stairs slowly. And sometimes the first 5 minutes was a little uncomfortable, but then we'd have a good 40-minute, 45-minute conversation. Mom told me towards the end of her life that she used to feel so sorry for me to get a 45-minute scolding. Well, I never really told her that I had a good time and that it was a worthwhile meeting. And also, he never spanked me once. What a life lesson it was to realize how Dad turned deafness into an asset. I think that he was an asset to everyone.
Thank you, John, for your comments. Well, I hope you feel a little bit of inspiration at this point to when you consider the achievements, not only the achievements, but the kind of obstacles that these individuals overcame to achieve what they did. And as you hear the stories, you understand also the lives that were impacted, both directly and indirectly, through their work and through their achievement. It's a fantastic thing. So I'd like to add my congratulations. Let's have one final round of applause. And therefore, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to ask you to remain on the stage for a picture as we wrap it up here. So on behalf of the Paper Industry International Hall of Fame, I encourage you to identify other worthy nominees and present their case to our honors committee so that for future consideration, so that next year we can enjoy another event and recognize some worthy individuals. So I'm going to turn the podium back to Harry Spiegelberg for his closing remarks.
These wonderful stories that we just heard illustrate the point that the paper industry isn't just a sheet of paper or a roll of paper, it's people, and people are really the ones that make it go. We thank all of you who have made contributions to us here at the Paper Industry Hall of Fame and the Paper Discovery Center in the way of artifacts, displays, and funds. I especially want to thank the Bolt Corporation for providing the lead gift in our capital campaign, which campaign has reached its goal and plans are being developed to allow us to take ownership of our Paper Discovery Center in 2018. So we're very pleased about that. As Peter mentioned, photographer is going to come up and take a picture of these. Don't rush up right away to shake their hand because we've got to get a photo first. But then you can congratulate them as all you want. And the meeting is adjourned.